Hey, this is Brookes with Character Design Forge. If you've had your eye on the markets lately, like everyone does, right? I certainly do. You'll have noticed that in the last 10 years or so, attention has risen in value. We could call it attention coin? Let's not do that. Attention is a commodity. Your attention, everyone's attention is a commodity. Companies battle over it, fight over it because it's valuable. However, the most valuable currency there is continues to get more valuable, and that's time. And so we're going to talk about how to make time, how to prioritize, how to balance your life and your art, how to make things without becoming a complete pariah, because we are, after all,
we're living in a society.
It's interesting, the comments and questions that I get about having enough time for art or not having enough time for art tends to come mostly from a specific group, which is the teenage range of like middle school to high school. And I think that anyone who's older than that age group can look back on that time period in their own lives and sort of see the truth of the situation, that it isn't so much that that group has less time. It might be the opposite. You had more time when you were in high school than you do in your adult life. It's more so that having responsibilities and the importance of prioritizing is sort of a new experience at that age. On the other hand, if I were to target a specific group of artists that I've observed as being able to get a lot of artwork done despite having a lot of responsibilities, it's parents. Parents who are either young themselves or parents who are raising young children who are very involved in the raising of their kids. And it seems like if they can just get an hour to themselves a day to work on their art, they really make that time count. And so I think when you contrast the teenager example with the parent example, there's definitely a lesson to be learned there. When life seems to be getting in the way of your artistic pursuits, there's this seed of an idea that I think everyone's experienced at some time, which is, what if I just dropped every responsibility I have and make art, make stuff? And this idea is just as romantic as it is short-sighted and flawed. And I think even if you were given this ideal a week of time where you were free of any responsibility, there's still a very good chance you wouldn't spend 100% of that time making things. And speaking realistically, you have a life. You have constraints on your time. Maybe things like work and school, family and friends, volunteered time, errands and chores, and hopefully you're taking some time for rest and self-care, things like fitness and relaxation. All that's to say that as frustrating as a lack of time to make stuff can be, you have two tools that are really going to help you out, that being balance and patience. Patience is necessary because there's a good chance you won't be able to accomplish everything as fast as you hope. But even more than that, it's healthy to accept that there are just going to be time periods where you won't be able to get anything done art-wise. Again, everyone's circumstance is going to be different, but if things are truly as packed in and hectic as you feel they are, delaying or postponing working on this thing might be the best thing for you in the long run, especially to prevent burnout. For me personally, I have a bit of difficulty perceiving time properly, so maybe this will be as helpful for you as it was for me. And that's that your time and your life are never always going to be statically the same. Your circumstances are going to shift around a ton. And so it's helpful to look at time in terms of seasons, whether that's just a few weeks or a month or a year. And if you're frustrated that you can't get anything done right now, don't despair that that's never going to change, but think about what that next season is and kind of be proactive and healthily look at how to squeeze some time into that next period so you have something to look forward to. Quick sidebar here, sometimes people will post questions under my video, and if I don't get to them fast enough, someone will reply with their own answer, sometimes not very good advice. And I have to call this one out. A kid was asking about balancing their schoolwork and their artwork, and someone had the audacity to reply and say that they should drop out of school and school doesn't matter. Had to delete that one right away. Don't do that. Don't stunt the rest of your life. There are definitely valuable things to learn in school, and just because it feels like art is the most important thing sometimes, art is not all there is to life. All right, sidebar over. Now, if you can manage just a little bit of time each day or each week, how can you best put it to use? Well, if you ask Baby Brookes with a mic in front of his face from 2 years ago, he'll tell you what is still my favorite advice for getting things done, which is, don't hate this immediately, waking up at least an hour or two earlier than you normally do, setting aside time before anything else that you do, and getting some work done. Now, I used to be a late night person myself who thought that was the best time to get anything done, but I ask of you to at least give this a shot, that for 2 weeks you wake up an hour earlier than you normally do. Even if you just sit there groggily at your desk getting nothing done for 14 days, I guarantee that on the 15th day, something's gonna click as your body gets used to this. Better yet, throughout the rest of the day, instead of anxiously waiting to finally draw or paint or sculpt or animate whatever it was you're hoping to do late in the evening, you've already done it first thing and you can have some contentness. And for whatever reason, the time that you spend early in the morning is like double as effective as this time spent in the evening. You're not tired or loaded down with all the stuff that's happened throughout the day. Your mind is clear and fresh. It's really amazing and it's super cool, and I want you to try it out. Once you do this, you're also starting a new cycle where you go to bed just a little bit earlier every night so that you can wake up earlier, and you're excited because, hey, the first thing you get to do in the morning is the thing that you want to do instead of the obligation of work or school or whatever it was before. And instead of depriving yourself of sleep and staying up late, because that period of time is the only time you get, and as soon as you go to bed, you have to do the thing you don't want to do, you're starting this new cycle where you get to sleep a little bit more and you're just generally healthier mentally overall. The next thing to do, no matter what time period you have set aside, is to remove consumption from that time and a little bit before it. So for example, if you're waking up early, not checking messages or emails ahead of time, or if you're getting ready but you just want to watch one quick video or check a pin board for inspiration, the problem is you kind of transition over into a consuming mindset at that point, and it just becomes harder to start creating the creative mindset. Plus, time tends to slip away very easily when you start doing things like that. So let's talk about the other extreme, where you have time to get work done. Maybe you have too much time and you're keeping up your end of responsibilities, but you're allowing your work to push life so far aside that things like your friends and family, your rest and recreation are all suffering, and that's no good. Part of why I think that parent I talked about at the beginning does so well is they not only make their time count, but they're also otherwise refreshing themselves through their family life. Our art is only as good as us, and we are recharged, motivated, refreshed, and inspired by living life. And those things, those experiences, are what we then filter back through ourselves to create our art. So if you think that spending 100% of your time to create art is the ideal situation, you will be a sponge that is wrung out in no time flat. It's such a common mistake where we think that by pushing through and overworking ourselves, we can get more done. But in reality, there's a certain threshold that we meet, and beyond that, it's severely diminishing returns. So be humble, recognize your own limits, and realize when you need to break away and refresh yourself. Someone also asked recently about the kinds of people that you surround yourself with. For example, should they all be artists and things like that? And of course, it's another area where it's good to have balance. Now, fortunately for me, I'm extremely grateful to have a family and friends who are extremely supportive and interested and invested in the things that I make, the art that I create, or my creative identity, if you will. But on the other side of the coin, I have people who are just as close, and it's nothing personal, but they have little to no connection to the things that I make or me as a creative person. And instead, they're interested in me despite those things, if you want to look at it that way. They're also able to sort of call me on my shenanigans and maybe not appreciate the art side so much. And I think it's important to have these people in your life, not only because it keeps you grounded, but it also helps prevent you from completely wrapping your identity around the things that you make, which is a definite danger, and I see a lot of people falling into that. And instead, these people can help remind you to give attention to the person that you are. Remember that making good things is never an excuse for being a bad person. Staying grounded is important too. I think the majority of people in my life could care less how many YouTube subscribers I have, or even that I'm making videos, or even how well art is going beyond the sort of normal interest that you have in your friends' work going well, and if they're able to cover their bills and things like that. And I think if you surround your people who are just telling you how amazing you are, of course then you're in danger of creating a sort of echo chamber ego trap, which is no good. On an even more personal note, I do not create well when things are bad in my relationships with others. So be honest, and be honest with yourself. Do your best to make good with other people, If you have people that are extremely toxic or negative, that's different, and you got to figure something out with that. But don't hold grudges. Don't be petty. In my experience, the work suffers as a direct result of those things. I'll pull just one thing from another video that I made, which was the "Are you too old to learn art" video, and say that patience should play a part in easing your frustration. And I think mentally, you might set up for yourself that you want to be this 19-year-old uber talented prodigy that studios are fighting over. But that's such a rare case that actually happens. And there are people who get good at their art and craft 20 years later than that and still have a creatively fulfilling and satisfying experience. I hope that something in here has been helpful for you as you adapt and modify your extremely specific personal circumstances to accommodate your creative work. Stay patient, stay humble, and don't burn the world to the ground just to get a few drawings done. If you'd like to support me, someone who is still struggling to balance the amount of time that they have to get all the things they want to get done, including things like these videos, you can support me at patreon.com/bageldenizen and get a few cool things in return, like high-resolution art files, things earlier than everyone else sees them, and perhaps the coolest thing, which is a personalized video critique from me helping you level up your art, design, and story skills. You can keep in touch with me on Instagram, Twitch, and Twitter under the username @bageldenizen, and of course, I'm making 2 new videos a week here on Character Design Forge. Subscribing lets you know when new videos are made available. Thank you for watching, and have fun creating!